some type. And so it's best to walk in bare feet, as our ancestors did for about 70% of the time that humans were on this earth. Now, since many of you chose to do an unsessionable thing and live in cold climates where you'd freeze your little toes off, you can't do that. So there are wide varieties of non-tools. You just have to get on the internet, look them up, and make sure that they're the ones that are comfortable for you and work for you. Soles are another thing. I learned to start doing that. I don't have foot problems, but about 20 years ago, I was at a medical conference lecturing. They had a guy there, and boy, I put them in, and my walking is much more comfortable. So now the next one. Let's see if this is another interesting question. Is there a link between nutrient deficiencies and heightened stress? You bet. And the number one that is all known all over the world is the B vitamins. And way back about 40 years ago, I started to teach about this, how important B vitamins are to nourish and to multiply neurons in the brain that go up and down from the brain, not through the vagus nerve, but up and down the nervous system. And that's where your fingers move and you dance and you walk and you sit and you sleep. All of that is that interchange, again, of tennis game between the brain and the body. And so B vitamins are required. It's not like you may need them, you do need them. And boy, it's one of the chronic problems I see with people. Now, where do you get B vitamins from naturally? Sprouted grains. Sprouted grains. And I'm not talking about wheat, rye, rice, and barley. I'm talking about quinoa, teff, amaranth, all of these type, buckwheat. They have a lot of it in it. And some of you need, because you're in such bad shape already, a food-based, living, plant-based supplement of B vitamins. And there's a few good ones out there, but most B vitamins are made out of something horrible. Matter of fact, I drove on it coming over here to speak to you today. It's called blacktop. Over 85% of all B vitamins are made out of coal tar. That's what they put on roofs, and that's what they put on roads globally. Which is healthier, jar-grown sprouts or microgreens? And which would be beneficial for lowering stress? Well, again, when you look at this, it's not so much how you grow them, it's what you're growing in this case. So sprouted grains can be grown into microgreens, but you're not going to get as much B vitamins once the B vitamins are used to create a leaf. So they can be grown in a jar in that case. So if you say, what's a general answer? The more sun you have on anything, as long as it's still a baby plant, the better it is for you. But in the case of the B vitamins I just spoke about, no, you don't need the greens. By the way, you get the greens, you're going to reduce the amount of B vitamin because it's not compact as it is in the jar-grown quinoa, teff, amaranth, buckwheat, etc. Cataracts, osteoarthritis, integral vascular calcification, disc and joint degeneration. So we'll go from the last one back. Now, it depends on how much you've eroded your disc and joints. So the diet itself is going to start giving you the nutrients that make that stop happening, but our energy medicine department here does the work that mainstream medicine doesn't do to help to regenerate bones. Matter of fact, a lot of the equipment we have here in the energy medicine department, the US government has actually approved for bone regeneration and post-operative healing. Now, that's the most difficult one, but it can be done, which we've done thousands of times. Then we go to vascular calcification. Big fancy word for you've been eating a lot of crap and you have calcium in your capillaries and veins. That's an easy one. And there's supplementation that we created like Life Give. And what we do is we give you the Life Give Circulation Max, and then you got to clean up your diet, and you've got to do something a lot of you don't like to do. It starts with an E. It's a dirty word, exercise. Yeah, you got to exercise. Then you flush it out. And then you do another thing. After exercise, you do what I do 365 days a year. You get into something called the sauna, ideally an infrared sauna, because now you're going to really flush it out. And then you do another thing that most of you don't do well enough, about 65% of you. You drink enough fluid, because your body and blood is made of water. So the more you have that, the more you flush, you heat it up. You actually don't add more calcium. Osteoarthritis, When I met my wife, walked into the room in 1978 in Stockholm, Sweden with Ann Wigmore, I looked at my wife and I went, Maron. Anyone know what Maron means? If you're from Italy, you'll know what it means. Mamma mia. That's another word. And I fell instantly in love with her. And I said, well, what are you doing? This is what a guy does. My generation, you ask, what do you do? Or what is your astrological sign? So I had asked, I didn't know what it meant. But she said, well, I direct a center for inflammatory disease, a natural healthcare center. And people come from the United States and all over the world because we have over a 90% reversal rate of things like osteoarthritis and rheumatoid arthritis. And I said, well, how do you know that? That's a high number. And she said, well, here in Sweden, unlike in the United States, and until now, you're fighting against the pharmaceutical companies to help people. So I've got to fight them to fight for your help and your life. And over here, the government came in and funded research on what we did and showed that 92 to 93% of the people reverse things like osteoarthritis and rheumatoid arthritis. So can it be helped? Sure. And guess who the co-director and the smart one is here? My wife. I get the credit because I'm a man and that's the way the society works, but she's the brains behind the operation and certainly the heart. When blood tests show potassium, what do you do about all the edibles such as broccoli? Well, you get on the internet. You have this wonderful tool now. I used to have to go to libraries called the internet. And you have even a better tool called chat. And you say to chat, hey, chat, tell me all of the wonderful vegetables out there, organic vegetables that have low potassium. You'd be shocked at how many there are. So you avoid those and you go to others. But again, if you have high potassium, you don't have a kidney problem. What's wrong with that? Unless other minerals in your body, but that's what our medical team figures out here. A lot of people out there say they're nutritionists, but they're not really nutritionists. So they study formal nutrition and they read laboratory science that really is not that good, to be honest with you. So high potassium is something you will get, as I mentioned a little earlier, from a plant-based diet. Only one has to worry about is people with kidney problems, and people with kidney problems that are chronic or end up with heart problems eventually. Our daughter is 2 years and 3 months. God bless her. She must be beautiful. We have given her chlorella for at least 4 months. How many chlorella tablets for Life Give is good for her? Well, guess what? Until they're 16, you give one for each year. So she should take 2 or 3 at this point. And next year, she should take 3 or 4. And then when she's 16, she can stop at 16, unless she's an athlete, unless we're trying to develop more muscle. So I take 20 chlorella a day because I'm 11, 16. I wish I was sweet 16 again. And the fact is, everyone should consider this because not only is it one of the most scientifically proven ways to detoxify the liver and the rest of heavy metals and chemicals, but it's a complete protein. It has every single mineral known to man, has the exact essential fat that the brain is built of. So you want that one. Life Give is a good one because we make sure everything that we actually represent or utilize or produce is as pure can be. So other supplements that you may consider with a little one like that is mother's milk. That's the most important supplement in the world. And the other day I was doing a lecture on the West Coast and I asked the group there, how many of you know how long we now think you should breastfeed? So for about 40 years, I was telling people 2 years. I was just chastised by the latest research scientists recently. They said, now we realize 3 years. So why God put breast on women is for men to look at. Well, that's not true. Why God put breast on women is to feed babies. And if you are going to make the wonderful, extraordinary commitment to have a child and have the gift of being a parent, you have to also be willing to breastfeed for about 3 years now. And that has everything in it, providing mommy is sensible, smart, and eats correctly, and doesn't take in anything but organic food and pure water and etc. What cause and how do I treat Hashimoto's thyroiditis? Well, that's an easy one. You don't take medicines. So you go to mainstream doctors, even a lot of the holistic types. Now, a lot of holistic doctors, a lot of respect for them, they jumped out of the cesspool and now they're in the toilet. And they are actually regurgitating a lot of the same old nonsense because they've been trained and corrupted in the medical model. So they think you just give drugs for everything. Well, we now know this Hashimoto's is not helped by the mainstream usage of things like Synthroid and Thyroxine. They actually do nothing. And so here at the Institute, we use ionic iodine, uniquely different iodine. We use selenium, and diet, depending upon the individual, it's always pure, it's always organic, in great part, if not total raw. But the most important thing, it's got to be individualized. And I can't tell you how many people we've seen get over that. Do you believe that it relates to wellness in the modern world? Stress? Well, again, why, as a nutritional scientist and a naturopathic doctor, I can't tell you in Florida I am what I am. I have brought in psychotherapists since 1981 here, and I tell guests every single time I speak to them, which is many, many times during their stay. We lecture a lot when people are here. And we say the most important person on this campus is not me and not nutrition, it is the psychotherapist. So until we change the mind, you don't change the life, you don't change the body, you don't get the immune system to work the way it should, and you don't live a long time. The elimination of stress is your number one objective. Now, you can't be trying to get rid of stress and eating garbage food. If you were here early on, I showed you why that doesn't work either. But most important, you've got to get rid of stress as your foremost objective. That's your target. Your target is that. Here we go. Do you believe digital devices and blue light are major contributors to stress? You bet your butt. I would say another word if we weren't on a mixed channel here. And I will tell you that since the early 90s, when the development of cell phones and cell towers and overwhelming use of computers, the world doesn't work without computers and networks at this point, the stress load has gone up, the disease rate has gone up, things like brain cancer, which was so rare in babies, is the number one killer. Anyone that doesn't think that that's part of it is sleeping. And any egghead intellectual who's so arrogant that you think that there's not enough evidence on it, you better get your butt off the seat and start reading the overwhelming evidence. I give a 2.5 hour class, and I wish it was 10 hours here. So I have that much material. Guess what? How can parents model stress management? Number one, every day you sit and pray, meditate, contemplate with your children. It's part of their life. So if a 3, 5, 6, 10-year-old child sees mommy and daddy say, let's sit and pray or meditate before we eat. Let's pray for grandma. Let's pray for the man down the street who's unfortunate. Let's meditate together. Let's think of nice things together. That's how you do it as a parent. That's every single culture throughout history has done that, except us. It's like, whoa, we discovered prayer and meditation. Well, guess what? You didn't discover it. They created that. The first humans were probably doing it. They maybe had rituals looking at the sun and thinking it was great. Maybe that was the best God in the world. Is there a link between nutrient deficient and the heightened stress response? Again, yes. Can't say yes enough on that. Now we go. Julie. Oh, Julie. Can you completely heal COPD? You bet. I can tell you I've worked with about 600, 700 people who have done it. And the problem is you've got to do a lot of work that most people aren't willing to do. You like to suck on respirators and things like that because the doc said the steroids are going to make you feel good. And they do. They make you temporarily feel good. Just like getting high makes you feel good temporarily. Then you come down and you crash. The same thing happens with these techniques. Now, COPD is the dysfunction of lung and the epithelial lining in the lungs. So what we have to do is rebuild that. The great news is the lungs completely regenerate every 70 days. So we have a lot of opportunity to get that lung to work. The problem is it's a slow, laborious process. It may take 3-4 years. But if you have the patience, will, and respect, honor, and gratitude for the life you've been given, you could do it. 4-year-old vegan daughter, God bless, breastfeeding, God bless her. What do you recommend for acid reflux, anemia? Well, anemia is a lack of B12 in almost every single case. And then when you have that anemia, there's something called Floridex, which is a wonderful plant-based iron substitute, and green, excuse me, I'm broken, leafy vegetables. That's where you get that from. Now, the mother can be taking that, breastfeeding, and also a 4-year-old, you can give that to them. Once children develop teeth, so we'll go on for that last question, piggyback, that means nature, God in the universe says, hey, now they have teeth, they have enough enzymes to digest, the amino acids, the proteins in their plants, and the carbohydrates and the fats. Until you have the teeth, by the way, it's an indicator you should not be worrying about that. Now, what I will say to you is that this is not a problem because vegans have it. There's about 3 times more anemia in non-vegans, but a lot of vegans eat junk food vegan diets, and you don't eat greens, you don't eat fresh greens. I do something you're going to see very soon, next week in The Real Truth About Health, cooked versus raw. We give you the reason why a perfectly fine organic green vegetable will give you iron. Once you cook it, forget it. You're not going to get the iron from it. All right, your Mecadin for gallbladder stones, that's a biggie. It's called the gallbladder flush, but you got to be eating clean. You got to be willing to take a fast. You got to do the right one. Don't get on to Dr. No Good on the YouTube, who knows nothing from good, and basically do what they say. This is something we've been conducting here since 70 years successfully. But you got to clean up your act. You have gallstones and you've been eating fat. And what that little organ is, it's the fat organizer. And you need fat, because remember, the body is built energetically to take from glucose from plants and also essential fatty acids from plants. Now, if you eat eggs, cheese, milk, all of these animal fleshes, you're going to put a whole lot of stress on that because that little gallbladder was not built to eat saturated fat. Even too much coconut oil is bad. And so what you want to do is clean it up. And I would say easily 92 to 94% of people, you can do it without surgical procedures. The other thing they had in this country that really worked without surgical procedure was lithotripsy. But then they found out they could make more money from the insurance companies by doing surgery. So they say, we're only going to through your belly button, so they make 3 times more money. But if you're in a civilized place in the world, you still have a doctor who remembers the oath he took, look up lithotripsy. We get into a stainless steel tub, they put high sound waves inside of you, it bursts them, then you urinate them out. Much easier, much nicer, but better than that, stop eating the crap. A family member has large polyp in colon that needs surgery to remove. He wants to know, should he come to Hippocrates? Well, the most sensible thing in the world is coming to Hippocrates. The very, very smart thing to do is then follow what we're telling you to do. So coming here, not through osmosis, just because you're willing to come here and spend the time with us is a great first step and a very sensible step, which has helped to save the lives of hundreds of thousands of people for the last 70 years. But the relative has to be willing to come here, change their lifestyle so they no longer have to grow some polyps and that could be or may not be cancer, etc. And today, as you know, colorectal cancer for young people is the fastest growing cancer in the history of medical data. And so it's doubled in the last 40 years. And why? Because of cured meat, burnt meat, no meat, beep. Come on. My husband is dealing with vertigo when he lies down. What are you doing? Whispering in his ear, sexy things? I don't know. So vertigo usually is an inner ear fluid problem. And you've got to go to a competent, this is an oxymoron, a competent eye, ear, nose specialist. And at least they were able to diagnose it. Now, everything from adjusting the atlas behind the neck, which is very, very impressive most of the time, to getting things aligned, and then, by the way, draining sometimes here, that has to be done by an MD, can be helpful. And we've seen, it's rare somebody doesn't get well from that. Come on now, keep those questions coming. Do you recommend napping, or is it something we should avoid? The opposite. So every single sleep study that's been done, and I've read 89 books now on sleep, and what we know is that the best thing for us is to sleep about 8 hours a night, deep sleep, REM sleep, level 3 sleep, which we're just learning more about now, and then take a nap. You just need 10, 15 minutes. I could never do that until I was somewhere in my mid to late 50s. And every once in a while, I'll be on a plane going somewhere in the world to lecture. And I notice when I pass out there for that 10 minutes, it feels like I've slept another 8 hours. And the people in the audience at night gets a much better Brian than if I didn't nap. Matter of fact, one of the great stories is with Thomas Edison, and he was not very social. And very seldom did he speak to anyone, including his family, because he was a brainiac. And he had one high school kid that volunteered with him. And the kid, asked him a lot of questions and wrote it down sensibly. And he said to Edison one time, why do you come up with all these amazing inventions? And he got a little fussy, and he said, when I nap, I just get up and write everything down. So it puts you in another altered state of consciousness that you tune into what I call the invisible multi-ominous library of information. It's a real big computer system of AI that's been around from the dawn of the multiple endless universes. What healthy snacks do you suggest for kids to take to school? Dehydrated and seasoned nuts, as an example. They need proteins, their little bodies growing. Dehydrated vegetables. Yes, some of these things like sweet potatoes taste better than potato chips, and you may want to put a little seasoning on them. Dehydrators are going to make your child's life better. All four of my children grew up eating dehydrated food. And they didn't want to snack so much, but we don't want to make them weirdos or oddballs either, because there's snack times at school. So rather than them indulging in all of the unbelievably chemically riddled food stuff that's on the market out there today, and ending up with disease and altered states of consciousness and autism, it makes me sick to my stomach as a father and a grandfather. Give them something that's going to make their brains and little bodies work better. And it's dehydrated food. You can buy it if you're busy, but it costs a lot more than making it at home. Non-toxic cookware is a really hard thing to talk about. If you ask me the number one best one, it's granite. They take steel, they put granite, the stone, on top of it. The Italians make the best ones. They go from very expensive to non-expensive. As long as that granite hasn't been chipped or it has scratches in it, you're fine. Now, what is wonderful about the granite and stoneware from Brazil, you get stone, actual stone pots, stone that you can cook on. You don't even need water. It's like shocking. You put the vegetable in, you put the top on, put it at a low temperature, and it comes out cooked with almost all nutrition gone, but at least you maintain a whole lot more than if you have water in there. Of minerals, nothing else is left. Very high lipoprotein, that's cardiovascular, around 200 LDL. That's the bad cholesterol on high side. Should they watch your intake of nuts and avocados? No, the answer is no. Avocados are proven not to do that. I know that the trend in the choir of holistic vegan doctors are how horribly bad all oils are. I'm not in that camp because I read real science, and unlike them, I've been doing this for a long, long time, and I've watched in the clinical setting that little bits of the correct oil is not harmful and reduce heart problems, etc. But you do have to watch certain things. Coconut oil, you may remember what I said just about 22 minutes ago. Fatty, high saturated fat. You have to stop sugars. You could be eating like me, but eat a lot of fruit and end up with high cholesterol, LDL, and high lipoprotein. A lot of vegans come in here with these same problems, and I know they're not eating meat. They're just eating too much sugar. Even if they're raw, they're eating too much sugar. And then, of course, you can do the things I mentioned earlier, saunas, consumption of enough healthy natural fluids, and also the E word, exercise. You suggest to reduce negative thinking. Well, you bet your ass. Why are you asking the question? The hardest thing I ever did, let's be honest, I'm joking now, is get rid of negative thinking. When I was young, a young man only had to do two things well: curse and be pissed off. We had great images of what a male was that were completely broken. One was John Wayne. I didn't choose him. Look at my hair. I chose Clint Eastwood. And so, very quiet, very macho, didn't have many opinions. And the fact was, tough was masculine. Now we realize transparent, honest, open, and authentic is masculine. And so you've got to do everything in your power to get rid of negative. And when my mentor, I was just a kid, I was 20 years old, said to me, you got to think positive thoughts. And I went off and I pretended I did it for 2 months. I went back to her, I was just telling this story to the guest here yesterday in class. I couldn't do it. And I was confident, I trusted her enough. I said, I can't do it. She said, you got to lie it. I said, it's not going to work. It worked. So I started to say things that I was so awkward and so uncomfortable saying. I'm a positive person. I'm a good person. Everything's going to be okay. Don't worry. There's nothing that comes at you can't handle. And I was saying, and it felt for the first 2-3 weeks, it felt like I'm lying. I was lying because I didn't feel that way. But by the 4th week, I started to believe it. By the 5th week, by the 2-month mark, 8 week, saying the right thing, your body knows what resonates correctly. And if that's what it takes, lie to yourself at first, it will become reality. Because truth is always reality, even if you haven't embraced truth and you embrace negativity. If someone overheats in the sauna instead of sweat, what can you do about it? Well, a lot of you have this beautiful skin. I always see these women with incredibly beautiful skin, and they tell me the same story. I get into the sauna, but I don't sweat. Because you don't have big-ass pores like I have, and a lot of people who don't have this nice skin. And so you are still sweating. Now, I'm not going to compare you to a dog, but dogs don't sweat either. They pant. And so some of you have a different metabolism than I may and a lot of people have. I look at a sauna. I don't even have to get in and I start perspiring. And you are perspiring through other orifices in your body. So it may not be your skin. It may be the back. It may be the front. It may be the mouth. And so you need to get in there. Now, don't overheat. Overheating is a different story. It's very difficult in an infrared sauna to overheat unless you did something crazy like staying there an hour or 2 hours, which I wouldn't suggest for anyone. Microgreens, wheatgrass growing like crazy. Good. I'd like to see your house. Send that a picture the next time we're on. Raw living diet. My COBO is so severe that I'm in toxis. Has your institute high success? You bet we have. There is so many things that we have had to work with because when the mainstream holistic docs out there don't know what they're doing and give you chemical supplements for everything or chelation therapy, which is a chemical, we have to get these people because the lucky ones and the smart ones, the ones who can take the time and they have enough gratitude for life to come here, basically we deal with this. And yes, you can get rid of it. SIBO is something that you have to do systemically, and it's not just diet. I wish I could tell you diet alone is going to do it. We have to start to put things into you. We start to look at your particular gene pool. We have very easy ways with highly sophisticated testing now. And then we target exactly what you specifically need, not the guy next to you, not the woman over there, you specifically. And today that's easy. Raynaud's is a very weird thing. So that is, you see it in your hands. Some people have feelings, and this is really something that they don't know what they're going to do with these. So they put it in an autoimmune problem. They don't know what's up and don't know what to do with it. The autoimmune problem. This is something that is really a glandular problem. And secretion from the spleen also of leukocytes, white blood cells, and a rhythmatic pattern going on between your hormones and that. Now, in the vast majority of cases, I can't say we get a home run 100% of the time, but I would say 75% of the time, that's something that's doable on this. Sitting at a computer, you bet. So there's screens, get on the internet. We don't have them here, but there's screens that have little metallic in it that prevent it. You should never be anywhere on the planet Earth without wearing what we conspired, Anne-Marie and I conspired with German physicists to create this. This has not come off my body for over 11 years. Now, this is called a high pulse. HHI means Hippocrates Health Institute pulse. There's nothing on the planet that's better than this. And then, of course, that screen and this. And then, by the way, you've got to put little interference mechanisms, EMF interrupters, directly on part of the computers. As I have in my electric car, I have one of those. So, yeah, that's something you better watch out for. I do another 3-hour class on that here, because that's as important as eating sprouts, I can assure you. Canadian, God bless you. I love Canadians. Just remember that. I'm an American who loves Canadians. I know you're our best friends, and I love Canada. Multiple myeloma. That's one of those diseases that they used to kill 100% of the people about 20 years ago. Now they only kill about 70% of the people with it. So in early stages of that, they made a very small headway. So this is something we've worked with a long time. Now, the differential between the hundreds and thousands of people we've seen heal bone cancer here and mainstream and holistic thinking on this is that we look at the bone as the epicenter of all cells. So in the middle of your bone, you create stem cells, which become you. So if you look at every single part of your body, even in a mirror, the skin outside, that is a stem cell that became that cell. And so they look at it as, oh, it's horrible. It's in the bone marrow. We got to do a bone marrow transplant. We got to get so much chemotherapy that the person's almost dead, and then we bring them back to life. No, we've got to change what is causing the abnormal growth of cancer stem cells within the bone marrow, and that's how people get well. Tonight, you may want to watch. Tonight, I'll be on The Real Truth About Health, giving an entire elaborate class on plants kill cancer. Now, is that a theory? No, for me, it's a reality. That's what we've seen here for 70 years. Till the next time, be well, be happy, and remember, stress is the number one killer. Find a way to be happy by being personally passionate about your life and finding your purpose.